Welcome. Settle in. Allow your body to rest gently into the streets and structures of ancient Rome. But not the Rome of marble temples and grand speeches, not quite yet. Close your eyes if you wish. Let the hum of the modern world fall away. You are here, safe and still, listening. The sounds of ancient footsteps echo faintly as we begin. Tonight, we'll begin not with triumphs, but with trudging feet, slow ceilings, and lives lived in the folds of empire, and your breath too slow. A city dweller in the crowded quarters of the empire's capital, where life was anything but glorious. Then, we'll trace the unraveling of an emperor ruler both worshipped and feared, whose power eventually collapsed inward. Later, we'll descend into the ash-covered ruins of her, where libraries lie still and locked in time. And finally, we'll lift the curtain on the lives of the Roman elite, where luxury intertwined with silent power games and scented intrigue. Tonight, we're going on a quiet journey not to the polished halls of ancient empires that school books celebrate, but deeper, to the humbler, rougher cut, and more shadowed corners of one of the most storied civilizations in history. You are invited to drift backward. We'll start with the daily rhythms of a Roman plebeian. So now, imagine yourself waking in darkness, long before the sun has touched the city. Crew, your bed is not quite a bed, just a woven mat, coursed with use, laid on the floor of a room that smells of smoke, mildew, and 1,000 cooked meals. Gah! You share this cramped upper chamber with 3 others. Your family, perhaps, or neighbors, or strangers, depending on who paid rent this month. Privacy is a luxury, and in the insulated apartment buildings of the lower classes, luxuries are rare. The wooden ceiling creaks as someone on the floor above turns in their sleep. The walls are thin, and sounds bleed through like whispers through cloth. The distant barking of dogs. The echoing call of a night watchman. The shouts of tavern-goers who never really went to bed. If you must relieve yourself, you carry a clay chamber pot down narrow stairs, sometimes 5, 6, even 7 flights to the street below, where you empty it into a public gutter, hoping no one sees. Merchants wheel carts over uneven stones. Slaves sweep thresholds, and stray cats prowl for scraps. Cool. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth, oil, wet wool, and old fish. Many don't bother. And the smell of urine and waste clings to the alleys like fog. One overturned lamp, and entire blocks may vanish. In crowded tabernae, or taverns, people gather to eat boiled vegetables and salted fish. Wine is poured, watered down, and shared. The public baths offer relief, though only if you can spare the coin and the time. Clothes are mended until they fall apart, sandals patched again and again. Illness is a constant shadow, and the physicians, well, they know little more than you do. Sometimes less. Arguments flare up. Songs are sung. And beneath it all, you feel the weight of the city pressing in. Roofs collapse under the weight of too many people or too much rain. No insurance, no protection, no voice. Here for a modest coin, you might buy a simple breakfast. A small loaf of coarse bread, still warm from the communal oven. It's dense and rough, flecked with ash, and often gritty with traces of the millstone. There's no running water in your building. No toilets either. News spreads by word of mouth, and by rumors carried in market air. This is the Rome where most people lived not for glory, but for survival. One day at a time, amid the filth, the noise, the endless churn of empire. The city doesn't sleep. Not really. Gad. And you, curled again on your mat, wonder whether tomorrow will be the same. Someone heard there was a riot in the forum. Someone else whispers of an omen seen in the sky. You leave before sunrise? The streets are dark, but already alive with movement. You pass the Baccaria favorite stop. This is a city of rhythms, of labor and waiting, good, of lines at the public fountains where women fill clay jars and children play with drips that form at the spouts. Let us climb higher into the marbled chambers of power, where the air smells not of fish and sweat, but of incense and fear. The next part of our journey leads us into the troubled mind of a man who ruled this city and feared its every shadow. Could, of long hours spent working as a porter, or a street cleaner, or a seamstress in a corner stall. Cool. If you are fortunate, you have a trade. If not, you carry whatever someone tells you to carry. Good. The noise never stops. Roman streets hum with voices, haggling, calls to prayer, and the rumbling of carts that aren't technically allowed inside city limits but come anyway, bribing the right officials. And then there's the danger. Good. The insulae, built quickly and cheaply to house Rome's ever-growing poor, are not safe. Fires are common. Still, life carries on. Water flows through the aqueducts, yes, but your share of it is limited. You do not write letters. You do not read them. Most of your neighbors are illiterate. Night returns swiftly. Oil lamps glow behind cracked shutters. It will. Because this is not the Rome of triumphal arches or shining armor. Boo! And so, as we leave behind the narrow streets, an uneven stone, let us shift our gaze. Imagine standing on the edge of a cliff. Waves crash below. Wind whips your cloak around your legs. Sea spray stings your face. Now imagine below you, the ground falling away to reveal a skeleton. Not a small one, but vast. Hands, feet, skulls, femurs, tibias, vertebrae, cut, all tumbled together. Thousands upon thousands of bones scattered across the seashore. Guts! What greeted the excavators at the Portesio site in Spain. What happened here? How did so many people die and why? For centuries, experts debated, was it an earthquake? A tsunami? Disease? War? Eventually, they came to a consensus. None of the above. This was the work of the sea. Gova millennia. The waves had pulled and tugged and dragged down a cliff, revealing these remains little by little. Who were these people? How did they die? To find the answers, we have to travel back to the year 29 BC. Rome had claimed this part of the world almost 2 centuries earlier. Now, its legions had come further west. Julius Caesar dreamed of an empire spanning the whole Mediterranean. Augustus, his adopted son and heir, realized that dream. But dreams need caretakers. Gan. And so the Roman Empire began, not with a roar, but with subtle gestures. Augustus knew he wasn't a great general. Unlike Caesar or even his father, he preferred the trappings of power, the pageants and processions, the golden shields hanging on his walls. To secure his borders. Then he needed allies. Augustus married his daughter Julia to a local chief named Marcus, formally binding them together. And there, in this outpost of the empire, on the edge of the known world, a city was founded. It was named for Caesar. And over the next few hundred years, it grew. Merchants from Rome and Italy set up shop there. Exiles found refuge there. Veterans of the Roman army retired there. Slaves escaped there. And some locals converted to Rome's religion, others did not. They lived alongside one another. And yet, despite this mix, archaeologists haven't uncovered evidence of much interaction between them. It's almost as if, to quote one researcher, the Romans lived alongside the indigenous people as ships pass in the night. Ben. In 25 CE, disaster struck. An earthquake toppled buildings and shook the foundations of the city. People died. Homes collapsed. The economy tanked. Augustus sent money to help rebuild, but that same year, he also exiled a senator to Caesar Augusta, a punishment so harsh it rarely got handed out. By the time the Emperor Caligula took the throne, the city was still recovering. He visited Caesar Augusta and decided it needed a boost. He sent freedmen, artisans, and merchants to live in the city. Still, when his great uncle Augustus died, the city wasn't quite ready to celebrate. In fact, excavations have revealed a coin hoard buried beneath a house. Perhaps the owner planned to leave. When the economy dipped again during the rule of Claudius, around 40% of the population vanished. Disease may have played a role. So did domestic unrest. Emperor Nero launched a brutal campaign against the Jews, sacking Jerusalem in 70 CE. Archaeologists believe some survivors fled to Caesar Augusta, adding to the city's woes. It seems no one wanted to leave. The city was depopulated by earthquakes, disease, war, abandonment, exile. It was depopulated by everything except death. The sea was patient. It waited. It watched. And as the centuries passed, the cliff face crumbled just a bit more each year. It tumbled down just a little further each century until, finally, it revealed this. A silent, empty space where a city once stood. A jumble of bones where people once walked, lived, traded, worshipped, hoping for better days. Now the sea has claimed not just this place, but this story, swallowing it whole. All that remains are the skeletons at Portatio, and the questions they pose about a city lost to the waves, a city lost to time, a city lost to us. Thank you for watching this episode, which was brought to you with the help of our patrons. YouTubers can apply to join the partnership program at any time, but we don't accept everyone. If you'd like to help us make the biggest, best historical videos possible, and get fun perks while you're at it, visit our support page to learn more about our partnership program. Till the next video, remember, Rome wasn't built in a day, but it was built in layers. In the heart of Rome, tucked away on the Palatine Hill, surrounded by sprawling gardens, once stood a house. Not just any house. This was the Dumas Transitoria, the residence of 5M. You walk through the atrium, cool and fragrant, sunlight dappling the mosaic floors. Here, Pliny the Younger, the future emperor, lived as a young man. Hosted lavish parties, entertained friends from across the empire. Over the centuries, visitors chipped away at them, taking pieces home as souvenirs. Decades. The great pearl hung above the table, mute witness to the passing ages. Until, in 1994, something changed. We can almost hear the laughter echoing through the halls, feel the warmth of the banquet, see the glint of candlelight on ivory and gold. And when we look up, above the table, where once a single pearl hung suspended, we find only an empty space. A void left by time and treasure. It is a haunting reminder of all that has been lost, of the impermanence of beauty and the relentless march of time. Yet it is also a testament to human endeavor, to our desire to understand and preserve the past. For in the end, it is not the pearl, not the frescoes, not even the house itself that endures, but the stories they tell, the echoes they leave behind. And perhaps that is where the true treasure lies. Once again, the frescoes were in peril. Their fragility had become a pressing concern. This time, instead of traditional methods, new technology was employed. Scientists introduced a gel to the surface, stabilizing the paint, halting its decay. Then, carefully, painstakingly, they began removing the wax. Piece by piece, day by day, they unveiled the frescoes, not with bare hands, but with cotton swabs. It was a delicate dance, part science, part art. Others simply walked across them, unwittingly damaging the fragile pigments. It was a slow, steady erosion, a gradual loss. By the 20th century, the frescoes were in peril, teetering on the brink of oblivion. Conservation efforts began with the best intentions. Restorers carefully removed dirt, mended cracks, tried to stabilize the crumbling paint. But their efforts were only partially successful. In 1939, with the frescoes on the verge of collapse, drastic action was taken. Each fresco was photographed, then covered with a protective layer of glass and wax. All except one. The mural showing Pliny's beloved pearl, that masterpiece, was left bare. He loved beautiful things. Ivory, perfume, paintings, and nowhere more than in his dining room. Here, according to Pliny's own accounts, he kept a single pearl, not for sale in all of Rome. It was set in gold, suspended above his table like a moon in the sky. It took pride of place among other treasures, including a statue crafted by the greatest sculptor in the world. But the pearl was special. It represented luxury, opulence, exclusivity. From the days of Augustus to the reign of Nero, it saw the rise and fall of power, the ebb and flow of glory. But today, we are not here to speak of emperors or their legacies. We have come to uncover something else. Something both exquisite and unsettling. Imagine yourself entering the house in the year 96 CE. Then, in 113 CE, fire swept through the house, destroying much of what Pliny treasured. But there, in the ashes, something remarkable survived. Archaeologists uncovered walls coated in charred stucco. Among the debris, they found traces of pigment, delicate patterns barely visible to the naked eye. Using X-ray technology, they peered beneath the soot and revealed frescoes. Not just any frescoes, but a series depicting scenes from Pliny's own life. There were banquets, meetings with friends, hunting trips, even a portrait of the young Pliny in toga. To see them today is to witness a moment suspended in time. Gaze upon fragments of a life lived 2,000 years ago. These frescoes were unique, intimate, personal. They offered a glimpse into the life of one of history's most fascinating figures. Yet, despite their beauty and historical significance, the frescoes faced a threat. And so, in the heart of Rome, within the imperial palace, 5 emperors rose and fell. The frescoes faded and tourists came and went. Today, thanks to this effort, we can stand in the shadow of the Dumas, Transitoria, and marvel at the frescoes once more. Thanks for watching. All right, class dismissed. You have 1 minute to pack up your things before the bell rings. What did you learn today? You learned about the economies of the Mediterranean in the classical period, right? Remember we talked about them last time? But some people in Rome were rich enough to live in houses, right? We call them dumas. But if you were really rich, you wouldn't live in a He oversees estate records, reads letters from his steward, and receives reports from freedmen. As the sun lowers, guests prepare to leave. Cloaks are brought, sandals strapped, parting words exchanged. The evening draws quiet. You didn't have to write anything down today. But if you want to make some notes about what we talked about, here's a suggested reading for you. And in the soft hush that follows, the villa still breathes. Oil lamps are lit. The servants clear the dishes. Somewhere in the atrium, a fountain continues to trickle. And now, as our journey comes to a close, you are left, not in the noise of the crowd, nor in the fear of the palace, nor in the ash of catastrophe, but in a place of stillness. Good! A space where history lingers in tile and fragrance, in silence and shadow. Could. His days begin with politics even here, removed from the city. Deals are struck in the garden portico. Letters are composed to clients and allies. Good. Every word, every favor, every silence is strategic. But as the day warms, the rhythms of luxury settle in. Good. In the bath complex, hot water is poured by slaves into marble tubs. Oils are brought out, scraped gently from the skin with bronze strigils. There is time for reflection or for quiet plotting. Then, the midday cena, the Roman feast not. Just a meal, but a theater of status. The triclinium, the formal dining room, opens to a shaded courtyard. Reclining couches form three sides of a low table. Cushions of wool and linen offer comfort. You do not sit. You recline, elbow on pillow, legs extended. Only the wealthy dine this way. Slaves bring in the first course crustaceo, perhaps boiled eggs, olives, pickled vegetables. Mulsum, a spiced wine, sweetened with honey, is poured carefully. Not too cold, not too warm. The main course follows. Dishes that reveal the reach of empire. Dormice stuffed with minced pork and pine nuts. Fish sauces imported from Hispania. Roasted game birds, spiced with imported pepper. Good flamingo tongues, for those who enjoy extravagance for its own sake. It is not about hunger. It is about display. Between bites, guests murmur low. They comment on the host's silverware. Bone on the music being played in the background, perhaps a lyre. Soft and slow. Good on politics in the capital, on whose son has embarrassed himself in court, on whose daughter is rumored to be promised to whom. Conversations are layered. One spoken, one implied. Words float like incense. Could. The final course, secunda mensa, is light. Fruits, honeyed pastries, perhaps dates stuffed with wine flows more freely now. The conversations loosen. Poetry may be read aloud. Ben, a visiting philosopher, might offer a short lecture. Cook. A Greek tutor may be asked to recite Homer. For entertainment, not for instruction, but always. Behind the music and the laughter, something else stirs. Power shifts subtly, like a breeze through the drapes. A suggestion made during dessert may shape a decision in the Senate next week. A marriage proposal floated over wine may form a new political alliance. Could. Or a rival's misstep, mentioned casually, may begin a slow and deliberate fall. You would live in a villa. Well, I'm glad you asked that question because that's our topic today. Okay, let's get to it. Could. You looked at how trade worked in the ancient world? How the Romans especially leveraged their control of the sea. You looked at slavery and how it powered big parts of the economy in the ancient Mediterranean. Again. And you saw how all these different societies were interconnected. That's right. The Mediterranean is one of the largest inland seas in the world. That's why it's called a sea. Could. Even though it's technically a gulf, it was connected to so many different societies. The Greeks and the Carthaginians and the Egyptians and the Israelites and the Romans. Bada. And because it was so accessible, trade flourished there. But what about Rome itself? Did you learn anything about how the Romans lived? You lived in an apartment building. Right? That's where most people lived. Those are called insulae. Class. Picture yourself far from the clamor of Rome's crowded alleys. Beyond the Forum, Beyond the noise of the markets, beyond the reach of the city's daily churn, you are in the countryside, perhaps in the hills of Tiber or along the coastal road near us. The air is still, the pace is slower, and the sky opens wide above sun-bleached fields. A Roman villa stands ahead of you. Not a farmhouse, but a villa urbana, the country estate of a senator or wealthy merchant. High stone walls encircle the property. Cypress trees line the walkway. Water trickles from a marble fountain set in a small atrium garden. Inside, the floors are cool, beneath your feet mosaic tiles arranged in elaborate patterns. Dolphins, vines, scenes from myth. The air is lightly perfumed with rosewater. Servants move almost silently, drawing curtains to shield rooms from the harshest sun. This is not a home built for survival. Good. It is a place of display. Of command? Good. Of control? Could. In the early hours, the paterfamilias. The head of the household? Rizzas. Luxury does not mean idleness. Not in Rome. It means influence. It means space to scheme with K. Class dismissed. Rome was an empire of contradictions. It was brutal and brilliant, dirty and dazzling. It housed the world's greatest poets and its darkest prisons. It built aqueducts that still stand. Good. And walls that collapsed within years. Could. A daily effort to survive amid noise, smoke, and fragility. For the powerful. It was a constant performance where a whisper could destroy, and silence could mean ascent. For those at the bottom, it was a grind. And yet, despite the passage of time, these echoes remain. In buried scrolls. In chipped mosaics. In worn coins that once passed from hand to hand. In stories that we, tonight, have walked through together soft. So now, as the embers of ancient Rome fade gently in your mind, let yourself rest. Breathe deep. The city is far away now, and you are home. Good night.